Part 58. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuchi. Chapter 571. Yokai High School, Grade 3, Class 7. Boy, what are you doing? Due to the inquiry of the class monitor He Dongjian, all the students in the classroom immediately looked up at the door of the classroom, and did not notice the scene of the beautiful girl preparing to jump out of the window to escape. At the same time, because Zhang Fengjai, who performed the Qingfeng step, was as fast as the wind, all the students who turned their heads to pay attention to him not only did not see him saving the beautiful girl from jumping off the building in time, but instead saw him knocking the beautiful girl down with force. Seeing that his girlfriend, who was in love with him, was violently knocked down by a strange man, the boy, who was instantly filled with nameless anger, forgot the wind speed that Zhang Fengjai had just shown, stood up suddenly, and then shouted angrily. At the same time, the other 11 boys in the class also stood up immediately, glaring at Zhang Fengjai with a common hatred. Ignoring the boys' shouting, Zhang Fengjai looked at the beautiful girl who fell to the ground and threatened with a cold expression. "Get out of her body immediately, otherwise, I will make your soul fly away and completely lose the chance of reincarnation." Faced with Zhang Fengjai's murderous threat, the beautiful girl's eyes flashed with a trace of resentment and hatred, and she immediately turned her head to look at her burly boyfriend, crying with tears in her eyes. "Brother Sheng, he hit me." After hearing his girlfriend's grievance, the boy with bulging veins on his forehead immediately swung his fist and hit Zhang Fengjai's cheek. Knowing that the boy had been completely confused by the female ghost, and that he had acted rashly to protect his girlfriend, he did not blame the boy for his move at all, and had no intention of punishing him. She took a step back and easily dodged the boy's fist, then quickly hit the boy's heart point with her left-hand fingers, completely fixing his body. Immediately afterwards, Zhang Fengjai took out a broken evil talisman from his sleeve, and after using the grey energy of Danshan to drive it, he threw it directly at the beautiful girl. "Dare to bully our class 7 of senior year 3, beat him up. Dare to look down on our class 7 of senior year 3, beat him up." Although they didn't know how the young man in front of them could stop the most burly student in the class, nor why he threw the burning paper at the female student, their hot-blooded age and impulsive personality made them raise the chairs in their hands, ready to fight Zhang Fengjai to the death. Especially when the burning spell fell on the beautiful girl, causing her to scream in pain, the 3 impulsive boys rushed over immediately. But at this moment, Huang Yiwen and Xiaolin, who came quickly, immediately took out their workids and shouted, "Don't move, I'm a policeman." The sudden arrival of the police stopped the 3 boys who rushed over, and also made the remaining 8 boys put down their chairs obediently. Ignoring Huang Yiwen and Xiaolin who arrived in time, Zhang Fengjai looked at the female ghost who mobilized the yin sha qi and tried her best to resist the sha-breaking talisman. After a flash of disdain flashed in his eyes, he continued to take out 3 sha-breaking talismans from his sleeves. When the young man in front of him took out 3 identical talismans, the female ghost with a look of horror in her eyes immediately broke away from the beautiful girl's body and rushed out of the classroom. Bang! But just as the female ghost was about to take advantage of the ghost's ability to ignore physical obstacles and directly penetrate the classroom wall to escape, 2 white lights suddenly flashed on the wall, forcibly bouncing the female ghost back. The moment the female ghost left her body, the beautiful girl immediately stopped screaming in pain. Huang Yiwen and Xiaolin's police identities also made all the students dare not breathe, which made the atmosphere in the whole classroom very quiet, so quiet that the first person's breathing and heartbeat could be heard. Therefore, the sound of the female ghost colliding with the wall was very loud, and it also scared everyone in the classroom. After all, the place where the sound came from was an empty wall. Zhang Fengjai was not surprised at all when facing the female ghost who was forcibly bounced back. Because at the moment when he was about to enter the classroom, he had already thought of the physique of ghosts that could ignore physical obstacles, so he posted a soul-breaking talisman and a demon-breaking talisman on the wall of the classroom in advance. This is the real reason why he did not take action to stop the other party from escaping just now. The demon-breaking talisman can greatly weaken the Yinsha energy cultivated by the ghost, reducing the ghost's strength and grade. The soul-breaking talisman can directly damage the ghost's soul root, temporarily weaken the resentment accumulated in the soul, and reduce the ghost's inner resentment. Therefore, the female ghost who was forcibly bounced back by the demon-breaking talisman and the soul-breaking talisman not only dimmed her solid body instantly, but also fell directly from the realm of a fierce ghost to an ordinary ghost. The female ghost floated up quickly, and her long hair flew all over the sky, revealing her true appearance. If we ignore the blood in the corners of her eyes and mouth, her pale face, and the scarlet in her eyes, the female ghost in front of her can also be regarded as a beautiful woman with a beautiful face and outstanding figure. Of course, what really aroused Zhang Fenjai's interest was that in addition to the strong resentment and evil spirit on her body, there was only a faint blood, which showed that during the period when she was promoted from a ghost to a fierce ghost, she had neither committed any wrongdoings that harmed the world nor committed any unforgivable crimes. But through the series of actions she took when possessing the beautiful girl just now, it showed that she was a narrow-minded, cruel, and sinister woman. In summary, the ghost girl in front of him should not have died more than 36 days ago, and she had suffered great grievances and torture before her death. Only in this way, she could advance to the realm of evil spirits in a short period of time without committing any sins, relying on the overwhelming resentment in her heart. And what happened next also completely confirmed his previous speculation. The long-haired ghost girl, after the resentment in her eyes was gradually replaced by scarlet, the soul body that was almost broken by the soul-breaking talisman, as the resentment quickly gathered, not only became more solid, but also gradually emerged from the state of nothingness. When the 23 girls in Class 7 of Senior 3 slowly emerged in the air, they couldn't help but scream in fear. The boys who were a little braver, although they didn't scream like the girls, the fear in their eyes and the subconscious clenched fists were enough to prove their fear at this time. Fortunately, Huangyuan and Xiaolin, who had experienced ghosts more terrifying than the one in front of them, immediately called all the students, including the beautiful girl who had escaped from the ghost, to gather together. Then the two of them stood in front of all the students and stared at the ghost nervously. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 572. Yukai High School, Class 7, Grade 3. The light of a firefly dares to compete with the sun and the moon. Seeing the female ghost using the resentment accumulated before her death to forcibly gather the resentment to restore the evil ghost realm, Zhang Fenjai sneered with disdain, and then quickly condensed the sword seal with his left hand and shouted. The three pure ones show their magical powers, and all the evil demons and ghosts will be killed. As Zhang Fenjai pointed forward with his left hand condensing the sword seal, an invisible sword energy went straight to the female ghost's eyebrows where the soul root was. Feeling the fatal threat brought by the invisible sword energy, the female ghost raised her head and let out a continuous and piercing scream. Her flying long hair suddenly became longer, and then she began to pull towards the invisible sword energy. The female ghost overestimated the quality of her long hair that contained resentment, but also underestimated the power of the invisible sword energy. The moment the long hair just touched the invisible sword energy, it was like clear water encountering a burning fire, and the long hair was instantly shattered. After seeing that her best long hair attack failed, the ghost girl suddenly stretched out her arms to grab the invisible sword energy. What was the result? The arm that touched the invisible sword energy was instantly shattered like long hair, which also made the scarlet in the ghost girl's eyes quickly replaced by fear. Then, the ghost girl quickly fell to the ground, and then knelt on both knees to beg for mercy. But the invisible sword energy, which did not slow down its attack speed at all, pierced directly into her eyebrows and instantly cut off her soul root. The soul root is not only the foundation for ghosts to survive in the world, but also the foundation for reincarnation. The destruction of the soul root means that the ghost girl will disappear completely. However, as the ghost's vitality faded, the blood stains left in the corners of the ghost girl's eyes and mouth gradually disappeared, and her pale face slowly turned ruddy. In just 3 seconds, the originally hideous ghost girl turned into a sexy and enchanting beauty. Huh. At this moment, a thin boy gathered together and couldn't help but make a surprised sound, which immediately attracted Huang Yiwen's attention and asked immediately, "Classmate, do you know her?" The surprised boy nodded and explained, "I have a cousin who is a waiter in the Lorenke TV. When I went to play with him some time ago, I saw her in the box of the karaoke bar. Her name seems to be Xiaoan, and she is the princess in the box of the karaoke bar." After hearing the boy's explanation, the female ghost whose soul was about to dissipate showed a look of regret in her eyes, and then told her identity, the reason and process of being killed. Xiaoan is just the stage name used by the female ghost in the karaoke bar before her death. Her real name is Huang Tingting, a student who just graduated from Ningji Vocational Technical School. In the face of the cruel competition environment where college students are as numerous as dogs, graduate students are everywhere, and doctoral students are barely available, she, who graduated from a vocational technical school, can only find low-end jobs with a monthly salary of about 3,000 yuan and are exhausted all day long. How could she, who loved vanity and coveted comfort and enjoyment, endure such a hard job with little pay? So, under the introduction of a close friend, she came to the Lorenke TV next to Yokai High School and became a princess in the private room to accompany drinking. Because of her beautiful face, outstanding figure, open personality, generous style, and outstanding alcohol tolerance, she soon became the top star in the karaoke bar. However, there are neither high-end residential areas nor high-end office buildings around the Lorenke TV. The main customers are the teachers and students of Yokai High School. However, due to the strict management of Yokai High School, teachers and students do not have much time to consume, which leads to the fact that Huang Tingting, as the top star, does not have a high real income. In order to increase her income, to be able to buy those luxury brands, and to accumulate savings for future retirement, she can only use emotional deception and deal with several teachers and students with good family conditions at the same time. On the one hand, it can make them often go to the Lorenke TV to consume, increase her performance, and consolidate her position as the top star. Secondly, it can also make those deceived teachers and students willingly spend money and consumption for her. If Huang Tingting's method of deceiving feelings is used on teachers with rich experience and feelings, even if she is found to be cheating on multiple women, the result is nothing more than a complete severance of relations and no longer being deceived. But for students who are in the budding of youth and are infatuated and persistent in love, this kind of emotional deception is undoubtedly a bolt from the blue. In the end, Huang Tingting, who was exposed, was forcibly kidnapped to the bank of a canal tributary by the 3 deceived male students, and then after being tortured to death by inhuman torture, she was directly thrown into the river to destroy the body. The reason why Huang Tingting possessed the body of the beautiful girl was to avenge the boy who was fixed by Zhang Fenjai. The reason is that this boy was one of the murderers who tortured and killed her. After hearing Huang Tingting's story, the pretty girl surrounded by the crowd looked at the boy with disgust, and took off her school uniform and threw it out of the window. Other classmates looked at the boy with disbelief, because they couldn't believe that their classmate who had been with them for more than 2 years was a cruel murderer. Miss Tingting, who are the other 2 murderers? Huang Yiwen walked quickly to the boy who was immobilized, handcuffed the boy's wrist, and turned to Huang Tingting and asked, "Xiao's Haidong from Class 6 of Senior 3, Zhou Xiaoyang from Class 1 of Senior 3. Zi." When Huang Tingting mentioned that the third murderer was Zhou Xiaoyang from Class 1, Grade 3, all the 35 classmates gathered together, except for the pretty girls who knew about it in advance, couldn't help but gasp. He let out a breath of cold air and showed a look of disbelief in his eyes. Their reactions and expressions immediately aroused Xiaolin's interest, and he couldn't help but ask a girl wearing glasses. "Classmate, who is this Zhou Xiaoyang?" "Brother policeman, senior brother Zhou is not only one of the 4 top students in our school, but also a super academic who has ranked first in the school's overall score for 2 consecutive years." When Zhou Xiaoyang was mentioned, the girl with glasses introduced him excitedly. According to the speculations of school leaders and teachers, senior brother Zhou may become the top science student in Ningji City in the college entrance examination next June and enter the highest university in China. Not only is he super handsome, but he is also a super academic. After hearing Zhou Xiaoyang's situation, Xiaolin couldn't help but sigh and shook his head. A look of regret flashed in his eyes. Ignoring Xiaolin's inner sigh, Zhang Fengjai looked at Huang Tingting, whose soul was beginning to become illusory, and asked calmly, "Huang Tingting, before you die, do you have any unfulfilled wishes?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 573. Yukai High School, Class 7, Grade 3. Can you help me stand up again? During the time she was a ghost, she had fully understood the importance of soul roots, and she also knew that if her soul roots were wiped out, her final fate would be to disappear completely. Therefore, facing Zhang Fengjai's promise to help her fulfill her last wish, Huang Tingting did not expect to be reborn. Instead, she looked up at the beautiful girl standing in the crowd, and then asked Zhang Fengjai. "No problem." After nodding and agreeing to Huang Tingting's request, Zhang Fengjai immediately ran the rearranged Hunyuan taking heart method, gathering the yin-sha energy within a radius of 100 meters, and then forcibly penetrated her body. With the nourishment of the yin-sha energy, Huang Tingting, whose soul body gradually solidified, slowly floated up. 1 minute. After stopping the heart method of gathering yin-sha energy, Zhang Fengjai left Huang Tingting the remaining time, and walked towards the door of the classroom. "Thank you." Slowly falling to the ground, Huang Tingting bowed to Zhang Fengjai's back and thanked him, then walked to the front of the beautiful girl. Then, she knelt down on both knees and kowtowed 3 times, then said with an apologetic look on her face, "Xiaoluki, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used your body to retaliate against Bian Li's Hung, nor should I have peeped into your inner thoughts, and even more so, I shouldn't have sacrificed your life at a critical moment." Faced with Huang Tingting's apology of kneeling and kowtowing, Xiaoluki's resentment gradually dissipated. Then, she walked out of the crowd and asked with a complicated look, "Why don't you let him go?" Huang Tingting took advantage of the opportunity of possession to peek into her inner thoughts. At the same time, she also took this opportunity to understand the other party's memory and knew that the other party had deeply fallen in love with the handsome and knowledgeable Zhou Xiaoyang. Therefore, Xiaoluki really couldn't understand why she took the initiative to confess the evidence of Zhou Xiaoyang's murder. "Even if I don't take the initiative to say it, with Bian Rui's Hung and Xia's Haidong as accomplices, can he escape the punishment of the law?" Huang Tingting stood up slowly, with a trace of helplessness and sadness in her eyes. "That's right." After nodding to agree with the other party's point of view, Xiaoluki looked at Huang Tingting, whose body began to become illusory again, with a look of reluctance in her eyes. "Sister Luki, life is short. If you love someone, you should say it boldly. Even if you don't get the result you want in the end, at least you won't regret it in this life." Stretching out his arm that was about to disappear, Huang Tingting tidied up the hair in front of Xiaoluki's forehead. Before her soul completely disappeared, Huang Tingting left the most precious experience in her life. Ignoring Huang Tingting's last wish, Zhang Fengjai left the classroom and followed the stairs to leave the teaching school, bypassing the playground and the experimental building to the front of the girls' dormitory. Afterwards, he used his open eyes to carefully observe the 8-story building in front of him. Although the yin qi is heavy, there is no resentment, which means that in the recent period of time, there is either no yin evil thing coming to the girls' dormitory building, or the strength is strong enough to perfectly restrain its own breath. Which one is the case? Just enter the building and check it carefully. Thinking of this, Zhang Fengjai walked to the iron gate leading to the girls' dormitory, stretched out his hand to push the door open and planned to enter the courtyard. But at this time, the aluminum alloy door of the communication room next to it was pushed open, and a burly, fierce-looking middle-aged woman in her 40s shouted in a bad tone. "Boy, girls' dormitory, boys stop." The moment he saw the middle-aged woman, Zhang Fengjai frowned slightly, and a look of doubt flashed in his eyes. As the saying goes, evil ghosts are afraid of evil people. The middle-aged woman in front of him not only has a fierce appearance and a sturdy momentum that can shock ghosts, but also has a strong temper that can hurt those evil ghosts who dare to approach the girls' dormitory. In other words, with the presence of the middle-aged ant in front of him, ghosts below the level of the Fang ghost dare not make trouble in the girls' dormitory. Then, the suicide case of a female student a year ago may have nothing to do with the supernatural. "Boy, which class are you from? Who are you looking for?" Seeing Zhang Fengjai stop obediently, the middle-aged ant with a look of satisfaction in her eyes asked in a much kinder tone. "Auntie, I'm a policeman. I'm here to investigate the suicide case a year ago. Please let me in." However, thinking of the detailed records of the case in the file, which revealed strange traces everywhere, Zhang Fengjai finally decided to go into the girls' dormitory in person to check it out, so he lied that he was a policeman. After looking Zhang Fengjai up and down, the middle-aged ant obviously didn't fall for it and stretched out her big hand, and then asked with a slightly sarcastic look, "Take out your work ID." It was just a temporary lie that the identity of the police. How could it be possible to take out the ID to prove his identity, which made Zhang Fengjai feel very embarrassed. Fortunately, Huang Yiwen, who had temporarily entrusted the arrest of the murderer of Huang Tingting to Xiaolin, arrived in time. She not only took out her work permit, but also consciously showed the weapon on her waist, which made the middle-aged woman immediately open the iron gate to let her in. After entering the courtyard of the girls' dormitory building, Zhang Fengjai did not rush upstairs, but according to the records in the file, he came to the location where the 3 female students fell from the building, which was near the window of the communication room. A year has passed since the suicide case. Although the blood on the cement floor has long been wiped clean, under the gaze of the sky eye, he can still see the blood soaked in the soil. Rise. Mobilizing the gray energy in the Danshan, it penetrated into the left hand. After quickly drawing the void rune on the cement floor with the index finger and middle finger of the left hand, he pressed his left hand on the cement floor and let out a light drink. As Zhang Fengjai slowly raised his left hand, traces of blood slowly seeped out from the cement floor under his palm. Facing the strange scene in front of her, the middle-aged ant not only showed no fear at all, but walked to Zhang Fengjai very excitedly, intending to carefully observe the blood seeping out of the cement floor. But as the middle-aged ant approached, the blood seeping out of the cement floor seeped directly into the ground like a mouse seeing a cat. "Young man, I'm sorry." Seeing that her approach had disturbed the loss of blood, the middle-aged ant suddenly felt embarrassed and took the initiative to lower her head and admit her mistake. "Auntie, it's okay." After standing up and patting the dust on his palms, Zhang Fengjai smiled and shook his head in relief, then looked up at the roof of the dormitory building, with a thoughtful look in his eyes. The time for deep thought was not very long, only about 30 seconds. He walked to the girls' dormitory building, and Huang Yiwen quickly followed. Although the middle-aged ant wanted to follow them and have a look, several male students passing by the girls' dormitory would peek at the female students from time to time, so she could only shake her head in disappointment. Afterwards, she stood directly behind the iron gate, alert to the boys and waiting for the return of Zhang Fengjai and Huang Yiwen. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuchi. Chapter 574. Yokkei High School, Girls' Dormitory. Due to the living habits and personalities of high school students, they are far less bold and casual than college students. At the same time, strict school management and tense learning atmosphere also make the vast majority of female students stay in the dormitory and study hard. Therefore, after entering the girls' dormitory building, Zhang Fengjai did not encounter too many embarrassing things, and finally arrived at the iron door leading to the roof of the building. However, the school authorities were so frightened by the suicide case of a female student a year ago that they used electric welding to directly seal the iron door to prevent other students from going to the roof. In desperation, he had to use the physical strength of steel and iron bones to forcefully push down the entire iron door before successfully climbing to the top of the building. His eyes quickly scanned the environment on the roof, and based on the records in the file, he walked to the location where the 3 female students jumped from the building. Then, he squatted down and used his eyes to inspect it carefully. Perhaps it was because it had been so long since the female student committed suicide, or perhaps it was due to the weather, but he did not find any clues about the ghost at the scene. Well. After shaking his head in disappointment and sighing, Zhang Fengjai stood up again, and then observed the entire Yokkei High School campus from a high position. Because he wants to find ghosts that have existed for a longer time and learn about the suicide case a year ago from them to see if he can find the real murderer. Ningji City has 3 middle schools with the highest enrollment rates, namely number 1 Middle School, City Affiliated High School, which ranks 3rd, and Yokkei High School, which ranks 2nd. But unlike the city's number 1 Middle School and the Affiliated High School, which enjoy full fiscal funding, Yokkei High School relies more on corporate donations and charging high tuition fees to support the construction and development of the entire school. Because Yokkei High School has trained many college students in recent decades, they have later become very outstanding entrepreneurs. Whether they are sincerely grateful to the school for their training, or they are hypocritical and have other agendas, these entrepreneurs donate a large amount of property to the school every year. At the same time, the use of financial allocations is relatively strict and the approval procedures are more cumbersome, which is far less efficient than donations and tuition fees. Therefore, although Yokkei High School was established much later than the number 1 Middle School and the Affiliated High School, its overall hardware and software construction far exceeds that of the other 2 high schools. Standardized football fields, basketball courts and volleyball courts, brand new laboratory buildings and libraries, rows of classroom apartments and student dormitories occupy 1/3 of the entire campus green space. It took more than 5 minutes to barely observe the football field and laboratory building in the East Campus using the celestial eye. When his clairvoyance glanced across the grove next to the volleyball court, a sudden flash of white light made him subconsciously stand on the edge of the roof, hoping to get a clearer view by narrowing the distance between them. But what he didn't realize at all was that the place where he was standing at this moment was exactly where the 3 female high school students jumped from the building. "Mr. Zhang, be careful." Seeing Zhang Fengjai standing on the edge of the roof, he raised his left foot with a slightly confused look, as if he was planning to continue to move forward. Huang Yiwen, who was standing behind him, said quickly, reminded. Huang Yiwen's timely reminder made Zhang Fengjai wake up from his unconscious state immediately. When he saw where he was standing and his left foot that had already stepped out of the roof, a trace of fear suddenly emerged in his heart, causing him to quickly step back. Although his body of steel and iron had reached the pinnacle of Dachan, he fell freely into the dormitory building with a vertical height of more than 20 meters without any conscious control. As a result, even if you are lucky enough to survive, you will definitely suffer unimaginable damage. Recalling the white light that suddenly appeared just now, Zhang Fengjai vaguely guessed who the murderer was who killed the 3 female high school students. Thinking of this, he immediately turned to Huang Yiwen and told her. "Yiwen, you go downstairs immediately to find the aunt just now, and then stay with her." and before I come back, you must not leave her privately. Immediately afterwards, he took out an old colored talisman from his sleeve, and then used the grey energy of his dantian to drive the talisman to transform into a red-crowned crane about 3 meters tall and very handsome. Then, he jumped directly on the back of the red-crowned crane, controlled the crane to take off by flapping its wings, and headed straight for the grove next to the volleyball court. Huang Yiwen also immediately followed the instructions and turned around and returned to the dormitory building through the patio, and then rushed to the reception room with all her strength to look for the middle-aged aunt. Since the sky has completely darkened, the red-crowned crane, which has reached the high stage of foundation building, flies very fast in the sky. Therefore, even though the middle-aged aunt who was guarding the iron gate had been paying attention to the roof, she did not notice Zhang Fengjai leaving on the red-crowned crane. The grove next to the volleyball court is not very far from the girls' dormitory building. It only took less than 5 seconds for Zhang Fengjai to ride a red-crowned crane to the top of the grove. Considering that the white light that just appeared had confused and induced his own consciousness, he rushed into the woods without risking it. After controlling the red-crowned crane to land at a certain height, he used his eyes to carefully observe the small woods below. Demonic spirit. When the sky eye scanned the location where the white light flashed, a faint violent and dark aura completely marked his previous guess that the murderer who killed the 3 female high school students was a monster. However, what he couldn't be sure of now was whether the white light that flashed just now was the color of the monster itself or the magic performed by the monster. After patting the slender neck of the red-crowned crane, indicating that it should be alert to the surrounding environment, Zhang Fengjai sat cross-legged on its back with his knees bent, then closed his eyes and drove his mind to leave the sea of consciousness space, and began to carefully search the entire grove. It's it. When his mind extended to the middle of the grove, he accidentally found a little fox with a snow-white body and a super cute look. When he saw that the white little fox actually had 2 furry tails, he was shocked like a storm. According to the records in the Taoist temple classics, among the monsters of the fox clan, there is a very special existence called the nine-tailed sky fox. The nine-tailed fox, from the moment it leaves its mother's body, is a demon beast comparable to the chi condensation stage, and the blood of the fox king inherited in its body makes it enjoy a high status among demon beasts. At the same time, the nine-tailed fox is also the existence with the greatest hope of becoming a demon fairy. The grade and strength of the nine-tailed fox are fully reflected in the tails behind them. 1 fox tail represents the chi condensation stage, 2 fox tails represent the foundation establishment stage, 3 fox tails represent the void pill stage, 4 fox tails represent the golden pill stage, and so on until the 9 fox tails representing the demon fairy realm. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 575. In the woods of Yukai High School. Perhaps it was because of the shocking emotions emerging from his heart that caused subtle fluctuations in his thoughts, or perhaps it was because the red-crowned crane transformed into a talisman inadvertently exuded an aura of demonic power, which alarmed the little white fox who was in the process of swallowing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to practice. It suddenly raised its head. Looked to the sky. When he saw the monster red-crowned crane parked in mid-air and Zhang Fengjai sitting cross-legged on the back of the crane, a panicked look flashed in the little white fox's eyes, and he immediately turned into a white light and escaped from the grove, and then flew out of the woods like lightning, fleeing towards the football field at a fast speed. Hurry up! Zhang Fengjai suddenly opened his eyes and immediately gave instructions to the red-crowned crane while mobilizing the condensed sword of grey energy in his dantian. Because according to the records in Taoist temples, during the Battle of the Gods that year, the nine-tailed fox clan, which was plotted by the immortal gods, was completely surrounded and wiped out, and the inheritance of the bloodline was completely cut off. So, how did the little white fox with the bloodline of the nine-tailed sky fox and 2 tails appear in front of him? Moreover, he also needs to capture the little white fox alive to investigate whether the suicide case of the female high school student is as he speculated. Although the little white fox can run at full speed as fast as lightning, it is still slightly inferior to the red-crowned crane with its ultimate flying speed. Just when the little white fox crossed the football field and was about to jump over the 2-meter-high wall to escape from the campus, Zhang Fengjai, who had already arrived on top of it in advance, immediately used the Kinkan sword technique to set up the 9 palaces killing formation, successfully covering the area. Live the little white fox. Although the little white fox possesses extreme speed as fast as lightning, its weak physical defense and its ability to barely break through the middle stage of foundation construction make it dare not easily touch the attack of the sword, causing its range of movement to become smaller and smaller. In the end, he was knocked unconscious by the sharp swords of Kinkan and Kun. Seeing the little white fox knocked unconscious by the sharp sword, Zhang Fengjai flashed with joy in his eyes. He quickly reached out and patted the slender neck of the red-crowned crane, signaling it to slowly land in front of the 9 palaces confinement and killing formation, and then removed it from his sleeves. Take out a soul-fixing talisman and a sealing talisman. Then, he jumped from the back of the red-crowned crane into the 9 palace killing formation. He used the soul-fixing talisman and the sealing talisman to completely seal the little white fox, and then waved away the 9 palace killing formation composed of 9 sharp swords. Immediately afterwards, he reached out and picked up the cute little white fox, jumped on the back of the red-crowned crane again, and then ordered the red-crowned crane to return to the roof of the girls' dormitory building. After reaching out to scatter the red-crowned crane transformed by the spell, he mobilized the last Taoist silver needle in the consciousness sea space, and pierced the little white fox's eyebrows directly. Zhang Fengjai reached out to remove the soul-fixing talisman and sealing talisman, then bent his knees and sat cross-legged on the ground, waiting for the little white fox to wake up. The waiting time was not very long, only about 10 seconds. The little white fox, which was stunned by the sharp swords of the 2 palaces of heaven and earth, slowly woke up. After seeing the human sitting cross-legged in front of him with his knees bent, the little white fox immediately jumped up with a flash of fear in his eyes, then turned into a white light and tried to escape. But as soon as his petite body reached the edge of the roof, he crawled directly onto the concrete floor due to the pain of his soul being instantly stabbed. If Zhang Fengjai hadn't used the power of his palm to catch it in time, the little white fox would have definitely fallen directly to the roof due to the strong inertia created when he escaped at high speed. Although the little white fox that fell downstairs would not die directly due to its weight and hair, it would definitely not be able to avoid the injury of broken bones and vomiting blood. Tianhu, you don't have to be nervous or afraid, Pandeo doesn't have any ill intentions towards you. Looking at the white fox with its twin tails wrapped tightly around its petite body, and the pitiful look in its eyes, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but feel her heart softening, and promised with a gentle expression. As long as you answer my 2 questions truthfully, I will not only take back the silver needle in your consciousness sea, but also let you leave safely. Perhaps feeling the sincerity in the promise of the human in front of him, or perhaps realizing that the human in front of him did not have any ill intentions, the little white fox gradually relaxed his vigilance and stood up, then walked slowly to Zhang Fengjai. Tianhu, the bloodline inheritance of the 9-tailed Tianhu clan was completely cut off as early as the Battle of the Gods. How did you escape the immortal gods' calculations and be successfully born thousands of years later? Seeing that the little white fox agreed to accept his conditions, Zhang Fengjai quickly asked the question he wanted to know. After hearing the question raised by the human in front of him, the little white fox lowered his head and thought for a while, then jumped onto Zhang Fengjai's lap, opened his mouth and bit his finger directly. Faced with the obviously aggressive behavior of the little white fox, Zhang Fengjai not only did not fight back or dodge, but instead allowed the other party to bite his finger. Because he could clearly feel the attack made by the little white fox, without any trace of malice or murderous intention. The moment his finger was bitten by the little white fox, a special energy wave followed the blood flow and reached the consciousness sea space. Immediately afterwards, a very ancient text suddenly appeared in the consciousness sea space. Although he did not recognize those ancient words, As the ancient words integrated into his soul, he was able to understand the meaning of the ancient words in an instant. Then, he slowly closed his eyes and began to carefully read the ancient texts in the consciousness space. It turns out that the bloodline inheritance of the nine-tailed skyfox clan, in addition to relying on natural reproduction methods, also involves the mutation of bloodline genes, transforming the ordinary fox clan into a nine-tailed skyfox. Moreover, the nine-tailed skyfox achieved through bloodline mutation not only advances faster, but also has greater potential and hope of becoming a demon immortal. After all, the ancestor of the nine-tailed skyfox clan was an ordinary green fox, who became the most powerful demon god in ancient times through blood mutation. The little white fox in front of him was originally just an ordinary red fox in Jame Mountain. He was lucky enough to escape from his mortal body and become a demon beast because he accidentally ate a 100-year-old white jade fruit. And at the moment when it was promoted to a demon beast, it accidentally triggered the resonance of the corpse of a Fox clan strongman buried in the belly of the mountain, causing the remaining demonic energy and corpse energy in the corpse to penetrate into its body at the same time, thus causing the mutation of blood. In the end, the little white fox became the first and only nine-tailed sky fox between heaven and earth after the battle of the conferred god. As the saying goes, God is fair. When it opens a door for you, it will definitely close a window for you. Although the mutation of blood allowed the little white fox to become a nine-tailed sky fox with unlimited potential, it also aroused the fear and murderous intentions of other demon beasts. One of the most powerful monsters in Jame Mountain, the swift-winged wolf demon, known as the forest killer, used its extreme speed that was not inferior to that of the little white fox, and its powerful strength that far surpassed it, to begin a radical hunt. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan-Yun Yuchi. Chapter 576. Yokai High School, the rooftop of the girls' dormitory. If it weren't for the nine-tailed sky fox's strong temptation, the wind wolf demon couldn't kill it after being confused several times. If it weren't for the fox's cunning nature and the tactics it is good at using, it would have induced other monsters to clash with the wind wolf demon several times, and gained the opportunity and time to escape. The little white fox, whose cultivation was only in the initial stage of foundation building, would have died under the pursuit of the wind wolf demon. Originally, after successfully escaping the pursuit of the wind wolf demon, the little white fox planned to find a suitable mountain forest for cultivation. However, the mountain forest suitable for cultivation has not only been occupied by other monsters, but also those monsters chased it with all their strength like the wind wolf demon the moment they saw it. The mountain forest not suitable for cultivation has long been developed by humans into a tourist destination. Not only is it noisy and chaotic, it is impossible to rest quietly, but even the most basic survival cannot be guaranteed. In desperation, the little white fox could only step into the secular world and find a place to live in the bustling city. In the end, the elegant Yokai High School became its temporary residence and place for cultivation. Because more than one-third of the greenery can continuously gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the campus. Although the amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth is still thin, it can barely meet its current practice. At the same time, the rich literary atmosphere can wash away the inner restlessness. Not only can it eliminate the inner demons generated during the practice, but also can help it better accept the blood inheritance. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhang Fengjai looked at the little white fox who released his fingers, and after a trace of pity flashed in his eyes, he continued to ask the second question in his heart. Little white fox, do you have anything to do with the three girls who jumped off the building and committed suicide a year ago? The little white fox, with a trace of memories in his eyes, swung the two furry tails behind him and quickly passed through Zhang Fengjai's eyes. Then, a series of changing pictures immediately appeared in his eyes. At 11:30 at night, a girl with short hair entered the campus from the school gate with a tired look. When passing by the grove next to the volleyball court, she accidentally saw the little white fox preparing for the second tail promotion, and her consciousness was immediately confused by the seductive breath emitted by the little white fox. Originally, the short-haired girl wanted to go into the grove to find out, but she happened to meet the patrolling teachers and security guards, so she had to give up temporarily and turned back to the dormitory. At the same time, the disturbed little white fox also quickly hid in the depths of the grove. The short-haired girl who returned to the dormitory was not only unable to sleep peacefully because of the influence of the seductive breath, but also climbed to the roof of the building in a daze, wanting to take advantage of the high ground to further observe the little white fox in the grove. The result: unconsciously standing on the edge of the roof, unconsciously wanting to continue to close the distance, unconsciously falling off the roof. The scene suddenly changed. At 11:30 at night, a beautiful girl with long hair and outstanding appearance passed by the volleyball court with tears in her eyes. She also accidentally saw the little white fox preparing for the second tail, and was also confused by the seductive breath of the little white fox. Then, the beautiful girl wanted to go into the woods to find out like the short-haired girl. But after being disturbed by the patrolling teachers and security guards, she returned to the dormitory and climbed to the rooftop, unable to sleep, and then fell unconsciously from the rooftop. The scene continued to turn. At 11:30 at night, a girl with a ponytail and go glasses left the classroom. When passing the grove of the volleyball court, she also saw the little white fox attacking the second tail. What happened next was exactly the same as the short-haired girl and the beautiful girl before. Slowly closing his eyes, he carefully recalled the description of the 3 female students in the file. He was sure that the 3 girls who just appeared in his eyes were Wu Danzan from class 3 of grade 1, Lu Shuling from class 2 of grade 2, and Li Hanyu from grade 11 who committed suicide by jumping off the building a year ago. This also directly marked his inner guess. After opening his eyes again, Zhang Fengjai stretched out his hand to the position of the little white fox's eyebrows, retracted the Taoist silver needle that had pierced its eyebrows, and waved his hand to signal. "Little white fox, you can leave safely now." Seeing that Zhang Fengjai kept his promise and let him go, the little white fox flashed a ray of joy in his eyes, and immediately turned into a white light and disappeared on the roof. Alas! Looking at the little white fox disappearing on the roof, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but sigh. Although the 3 girls fell unconsciously and died because of the seductive aura emitted by the little white fox, the little white fox was at a critical moment of breaking through the realm. He could neither control the emission of the seductive aura nor had time to save the 3 girls. Therefore, the deaths of the 3 girls could not be blamed on the little white fox at all, it could only be their fate. After taking a deep breath, he took out his mobile phone and called Yang Guo's Hung. He briefly introduced the process of the suicide case, then hung up the phone and walked to the patio. Since the suicide case of UKI High School has been investigated, the next step is to solve the third case, which is the case of the family extermination in the luxury manor. After returning to the dormitory building through the patio, and then going up the stairs to the yard, Zhang Fengjai unexpectedly saw that in front of the door of the communication room, in addition to Huang Yiwen, Xiaolin, and the middle-aged aunt, there were 4 middle-aged people, 3 men and 1 woman, and a young woman with fair skin and beautiful appearance. "Mr. Zhang, how is the investigation of the case going?" Seeing Zhang Fengjai walking out of the girls' dormitory building, Huang Yiwen asked him questions while quickening her pace to meet him, and then whispered in his ear. "Mr. Zhang, they are all school leaders of UKI High School, and they want to ask about the details of Huang Tingting's murder." "I know." After nodding in response to Huang Yiwen's reminder, Zhang Fengjai walked in front of everyone with a gloomy face. "I guess you are the leader in charge of Huang Tingting's murder." Although it was not clear why the thin boy in front of him suddenly looked gloomy, the sociable office director Chi Minghai immediately greeted and praised him with a bright smile on his face. "The leader is really young and promising, and has a bright future." Ignoring the praise of the middle-aged man with a slightly plump figure, Zhang Fengjai swept his eyes over the other four people, and then locked his eyes directly on a middle-aged man with a majestic appearance, about 50 years old, and asked indifferently. "You must be the principal of Yuki High School." As the principal of Yuki High School, which ranks second in the city in terms of enrollment rate, Yao Zongan enjoys a high status and influence in Ningji City. He can have an equal dialogue with the director of the Public Security Bureau. So, facing a small official in charge of handling a case, who gave him a less than enthusiastic attitude, he just nodded coldly. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 577. Yuki High School, in front of the communication room of the girls' dormitory. Since you are the principal of Yuki High School, you should know how important the environment around the school has on students' learning and life. Ignoring the other party's cold response, Zhang Fengjai asked in a polite tone. Then why do you condone the opening of internet cafes, massage parlors, leisure clubs, and KTV karaoke bars? After hearing Zhang Fengjai's question, Yao Zongan's eyes immediately flashed with a look of displeasure. The fair-skinned and beautiful young woman frowned slightly. "Boss, the shops around the school can bring millions of rents to our school every year, and then we use these rents to improve the learning and living environment of the students. This is a completely mutually beneficial decision." Seeing the displeasure flashing through Yao Zongan's eyes, Qi Minghai, who was good at observing words and expressions, immediately took the initiative to explain and did not forget to flatter Yao Zongan. This also made Yao Zongan's gloomy expression instantly replaced by a smile. Mutual benefit. After Zhang Fengjai repeated the sentence with a sneer, his gloomy expression was instantly replaced by anger, and then he suppressed his anger and continued to question. "If it weren't for the beauty cabaret opened next to your school, the three students Bian Ruiz Hung, Xiaz Haidong, and Zhou Xiaoyang would not have gone there to shop, and it would have been impossible for them to get to know Huang Tingting, the top star there, and there would have been no murder case involving humiliation and suicide. Compared to Huang Tingting's life in her youth, compared to three students who had a promising future but ended up behind bars, are millions of dollars in rent really so important? Can your decision really be mutually beneficial?" Facing Zhang Fengjai's repeated questions, Qi Minghai was speechless and didn't know how to refute. Yao Zongan, whose smile was instantly replaced by gloominess, snorted in annoyance and turned around to leave the communication room. Afterwards, Qi Minghai's four subordinates quickly followed. However, when the fair-skinned and beautiful young woman passed the iron gate, she turned her head and glanced at Zhang Fengjai, with a sinister cold light flashing in her eyes. Looking at the people turning to leave, Zhang Fengjai, who could no longer suppress the anger in his heart, warned with a look as cold as ice. "If you don't immediately close the internet cafes, massage parlors, leisure clubs, and KTV karaoke bars near the school, it could take as short as 5 days or as long as 7 days, and there will definitely be more serious murders in the school." Seeing everyone's footsteps not stopping at all, Zhang Fengjai continued to warn with a hint of murderous intent in his next tone. "If things are allowed to continue to deteriorate, not only will there be more and more illegal and criminal cases in the school, but also the hard-earned civility will be exhausted, and your school will be completely shut down." But it is a pity that no matter how serious the facts stated in Zhang Fengjai's warning were, Yao Zongan and others chose to ignore them. "Young man, is what you just said true? Will our school really be in trouble next?" The middle-aged ant who had seen Zhang Fengjai suck out the blood from the concrete floor with one hand asked with a slightly panicked expression. "Auntie, if you hadn't been in charge of Yuki High School, in as little as 3 days or as long as 5 days, the murder I just mentioned would have happened earlier." Faced with the middle-aged ant's questioning, Zhang Fengjai took a deep breath to suppress after feeling angry inside. He replied in a gentle tone. "Why?" the middle-aged ant suddenly asked in confusion. "Auntie, you probably came to work after the female student's suicide case a year ago, Zhang Fengjai asked with a smile without immediately answering the middle-aged ant's question. That's right, the middle-aged ant nodded and admitted. Because the strong fire energy in your body is almost equivalent to the yang-yang energy. The gang-yang energy is the nemesis of evil spirits. This is also the reason why there has been no accident in UKI High School for nearly a year. After giving the answer that the middle-aged ant wanted to know, Zhang Fengjai used the eyes of the sky that were always open, and then took a look at the campus where the sinister energy was constantly gathering. But what a pity! Shaking his head and sighing, without saying anything else, he walked directly out of the girls' dormitory building. Seeing this, Huang Yiwen and Xiaolin also hurriedly chased after them. The less knowledgeable you are, the more you fear gods and monsters. Zhang Fengjai's rambling explanation just now, and his last shake of the head and sigh, made the middle-aged ant have a premonition that the crisis the school was about to encounter was probably related to the legendary monsters and monsters. This frightened her and she immediately turned back. Go to the reception room. After quickly packing her bags, the middle-aged ant called Chi Minghai, the office director, to ask for leave. Regardless of whether Chi Minghai agreed or not, he hung up the phone, left the transmission room with his baggage on his back, and went straight to the school gate. Mr. Zhang, were you trying to scare Yao Zongan and others just now? The matter is far from as serious as you said, Xiaolin asked cautiously after speeding up to catch up with Zhang Fengjai. Stopping and looking at Xiaolin, then looking up at the small woods next to the volleyball court, Zhang Fengjai said with a complicated expression. Xiaolin, in fact, the seriousness of the matter has far exceeded my warning just now. In fact, there have been no supernatural cases in UKI High School for nearly a year. The presence of the middle-aged ant is important, but the appearance of the little white fox is the key. Whether it was the seductive aura emanating from the little white fox or the deterrence of the nine-tailed sky fox king's bloodline, ghosts, evil spirits, fang ghosts, and ordinary monsters did not dare to easily set foot in the school. As for Huang Tingting, who was in the evil ghost realm, it was because her murderer Bian Ruiz Hung had her blood stained in Longyang. With the help of blood to cover up the evil aura, she was able to enter the school smoothly and practice to the evil ghost realm. Although he just kept his promise to let the little white fox go, given the suspicious nature of the fox clan, the little white fox would definitely abandon the place of retreat in UKI High School and look for a new place to live. Then, after losing the deterrence of the little white fox, a large number of evil things and ordinary monsters would definitely invade the campus comprehensively. By then, even if the masters of the Supernatural Research Institute came to clean up, it would probably have caused irreparable losses. Moreover, with the laissez-faire attitude of the Supernatural Research Institute towards Ningji City, it may eventually turn a blind eye and refuse to help. Far more serious than a warning. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's explanation, Xiaolin immediately wanted him to help the school, but Huang Yiwen held him down and shook his head. Then, she reminded him in a low voice. Xiaolin, if Mr. Zhang wants to help, then no one needs to ask for help. But if Mr. Zhang doesn't want to intervene in this matter, then no one's request will help. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 578. On the campus of UKI High School. Although Huang Yiwen deliberately lowered the reminder voice, for Zhang Fengjai, who has sensitive hearing, it was actually the same as standing next to him and talking, which also made a look of hesitation appear in his eyes. Originally, according to his unwillingness to meddle in other people's business, he didn't want to care about the survival of UKI High School, let alone the lives and deaths of the school leaders and teachers. But when I think about the nearly 5,000 students in the school who are innocent, their responsibilities and obligations are to study hard, strive to get into a good university, and repay the kindness of society and their parents, instead of enduring the disasters and punishments caused by the greed and selfishness of the school leaders. At the same time, he thought that some senior officials in the Supernatural Research Institute who had hatred against him were always looking for opportunities to retaliate against him and wanted to kill him. If a large number of ghosts, demons, and ordinary monsters invade the campus and cause the death of a large number of innocent students, some senior officials of the Supernatural Research Institute will definitely take the opportunity to hold them accountable. Even if he is unable to deal with himself, a non-staff temporary worker, he will definitely retaliate against himself indirectly by punishing Zhuang Jian. They may even take advantage of Zhuang Jian's life and death to trigger an unending confrontation between themselves and the Supernatural Research Institute. Although he has the second grandfather who is in the realm of innate martial arts and the third grandfather who has the powerful realm of golden elixir as his backers, he has the power to confront the Supernatural Research Institute head-on, but he does not want to fall into the conspiracy of some people. Thinking of this, the hesitant look in his eyes was instantly replaced by determination, and he turned to Huang Yiwen and Xiaolin and gave instructions. "You go to the car and wait for me first." Immediately afterwards, he used Qingfeng's step to turn into a gust of wind, which went straight to the east, west, north, and south walls of the campus. Then, he buried an evil-breaking talisman, an evil-breaking talisman, and an evil-destroying talisman at a depth of 30 centimeters under the walls. Soul-breaking talisman. However, the 12 talismans buried in the ground were very different from the talismans he usually used. Because he was drawn using his own blood and gray energy, his power has reached the early stage of the 8th level of the foundation period. At the same time, every spell contains a trace of his thoughts. In this way, his shadow can be temporarily condensed to continue to enhance the power of the spell attack, and it can also allow him to sense the situation at the scene immediately so that he can rush to support in time. Of course, helping UKI High School resolve the upcoming crisis does not mean that he will easily let go of the disasters caused by Yao Zongan and others due to greed and selfishness, as well as their arrogance and rudeness towards him. That's why he buried the evil-breaking talisman and soul-breaking talisman 30 centimeters deep into the ground. Because only when the sinister aura and monster aura in the campus reach a certain concentration at the same time, the 12 talismans will truly work. But the premise is that he must ensure that the ghosts, demons, and ordinary monsters that have invaded the campus cannot harm the students in the school before the spell takes effect. Therefore, after burying the last 3 charms under the north wall, he continued to use Qingfeng's step to rush to the student dormitory building, and then quietly sneaked into the male and female dormitory building. Then, he took a drop of blood from 8 sleeping classmates of different ages and genders. Then, he came to the flagpole used by the school to raise the flag, mobilized the last Taoist silver needle in the consciousness C space, and integrated it directly into the aluminum alloy flagpole. After squeezing out a drop of blood from scratched finger, blend it into the 8 drops of blood just collected, and then draw the soul-fixing rune where the Taoist silver needle blends into the flagpole. In this case, students who are attacked by ghosts, demons, and ordinary monsters will be protected by the golden armor giant who reveals his true form. Of course, the premise is that no more than 9 golden armor giants can reveal their true bodies at the same time. Otherwise, the Taoist silver needle will collapse due to the rapid consumption of energy. Therefore, in order to avoid the accident of the Taoist silver needle collapsing, he must rush to support in time when the campus is violently attacked. Call. Looking at the blood rune slowly integrated into the flagpole, Zhang Fengjai took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, turned away from the flagpole and went straight to the school gate. About 50 meters away from National Highway 327 in Ningji City, there is a villa area covering an area of more than 40 hectares. Its original name was Happy Home Villa Area. But unlike the villas in the general villa area, each villa in the Happy Home Villa area is not only a 2-story building with a separate courtyard, but the overall area of the courtyard is as much as 400 to 500 square meters. It is completely possible to develop a self-sufficient vegetable plot. In the eyes of ordinary people, the villas in the Happy Home Villa district are just like manors. Therefore, after countless people sighed and took the initiative to rename it Weofeng Manor District, it gradually replaced the original name of Happy Home. Although the construction cost of each manor in Weofeng Manor District is very high, the elegant environment, first-class supporting measures, and top-level security services allowed Weofeng Manor to completely complete the construction of 30 manors within half an hour of its opening. It was sold out, and even top real estate tycoons such as Shen Zhenghao and Sun Shuxian didn't snap up it. Fortunately, Shen Loxi, who is making every effort to take over the Kowloon Group, has successfully purchased a manor owned by Chen Yunhan in Weofeng Manor District, and has decided to move his family into the manor after the year. Therefore, when he decided to take over the massacre of the luxurious manor, Zhang Fengjai also planned to understand the feng shui pattern of Weofeng Manor area to see if there was anything that needed to be changed. Signaling Xiaolin to park the police car on the side of the national highway, Zhang Fengjai got off the car and directly mobilized the gray energy in his danshan to open his eyes and began to carefully observe the manor area 50 meters away. It is adjacent to the canal tributary in the east, National Highway 327 in the south, the Canal Thermal Power Plant in the west, and the Rockery Park in the north. The passage of the canal tributary forms the water element, the wealth brought by National Highway 327 forms the gold element, the heating obtained by the thermal power plant through burning coal forms the fire element, the artificial Rockery Park forms the earth element, and then the wood element formed by more than half of the greening in the manor, finally forming a perfect 5-element feng shui treasure land. Even with his current feng shui ability, he could not further improve the water and wind layout of the manor. Zhang Fengjai, with a satisfied look in his eyes, turned back to the police car and signaled Xiaolin to continue driving, intending to go to the manor area to feel the environmental changes brought about by the perfect 5-element feng shui pattern. No matter how arrogant the security guards of the manor were, facing Xiaolin and Huang Yiwen who intentionally showed their guns, they quickly showed a flattering smile and took the initiative to open the door and let them go. When the police car drove into the manor, Zhang Fengjai's expectations were instantly replaced by confusion, and he couldn't help but frown. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 579. In Weofeng Manor. According to the influence of Feng Shui pattern on the environment, Weofeng Manor, which occupies a perfect 5-element Feng Shui treasure land, should have a fresh and pleasant environment, refreshing air, and make people who enter the manor feel comfortable. But at the moment when the police car passed through the gate and entered the manor area, an unprecedented dull and depressing atmosphere made Zhang Fengjai's mood suddenly tense. Even if he immediately ran the reordered Hunyuan taking heart method and silently recited the Taoist King's In mantra, he could not eliminate and suppress the increasingly nervous emotions in his heart. Just when the nervous mood made him gradually feel irritable, the 2 dragon statues that suddenly appeared in front of him immediately attracted his attention and controlled his irritable emotions. When the police car arrived in front of the artificial dragon statue, Zhang Fengjai gestured to Xiaolin with a solemn face to stop the car. Then, he opened the door and got out of the car and looked up at the dragon statue. These are 2 exquisite statues of 2 dragons playing with a pearl, about 9 meters high, with their bodies entangled with each other. Although the 2 dragon statues are very large, the level of carving is quite high. Not only are the dragon patterns and dragon scales on the body clearly presented, but they also have nearly 80% of the charm of the dragon. The statue of the 2 dragons playing with a pearl symbolizes auspiciousness and joy, and can form a perfect integration with the feng shui pattern of Weofeng Manor, which can further enhance the advantages of the 5 elements feng shui pattern. But for some reason, the statue of the 2 dragons playing with a pearl in front of him gave him a sense of evil and danger. Especially the stone fireball playing between the heads of the 2 dragons, which seemed to be the eyes of a certain monster. "Mr. Zhang, what's wrong with you?" Through the rearview mirror of the police car, seeing Zhang Fengjai looking up at the dragon statue with a more and more solemn expression, Xiaolin, who was sitting in the driver's seat, asked with concern. Xiaolin's concerned inquiry made Zhang Fengjai, who had withdrawn his gaze from the dragon statue, suddenly feel relaxed and comfortable from the dull and depressing atmosphere. At the same time, the nervous mood in his heart calmed down instantly, and the environment in the manor became quiet and elegant. Zhang Fengjai, with a look of doubt in his eyes, turned back to the police car and shook his head to Xiaolin to indicate that he was fine, and told him to continue driving to Manor number 31, where the massacre occurred. Since it had been 5 years since the massacre, Manor number 31, which could no longer be sold, was completely abandoned. Not only was the wall surrounding the entire manor in tatters, but the courtyard was also overgrown with weeds. The depressing atmosphere when he just entered the manor and the evil feeling brought by the double dragon playing with the pearl statue made Zhang Fengjai, who got off the car and walked to the gate of the manor, not rush to enter the manor, but use special ventriloquism to summon the mice living in the manor. Because he wanted to use his means of communicating with mice to understand the specific situation in the manor in advance. But what was completely beyond his expectation was that after waiting for nearly 3 minutes, there was not a single mouse in the abandoned manor that was completely suitable for rats, insects, snakes and ants to survive. He immediately realized that there must be unknown dangers hidden in the manor in front of him. "Yaiwen, Xiaolin, you stay at the gate of the manor for now. You are not allowed to step into the manor without my order," Zhang Fengjai instructed Huang Yaiwen and Xiaolin with a serious look while mobilizing the grey energy of Danshan to condense the sharp sword. "Got it?" After several supernatural experiences together, Huang Yaiwen and Xiaolin already knew that Zhang Fengjai's action of condensing the sharp sword indicated the coming of crisis. So, the two of them nodded and agreed quickly, and took out their pistols to guard both sides of the iron gate of the manor. Without stopping Huang Yaiwen and Xiaolin's vigilant actions, Zhang Fengjai took a deep breath, calmed the nervousness in his heart, and stepped into the manor. Looking at the nearly 2-meter-high weeds in front of him, in order to prevent his vision from being disturbed, he waved the sharp sword in his hand and performed a move of sparks and fire. Then, the invisible sword energy formed by the sword technique directly cut off 3/4 of the weeds in the manor in a semi-fan-shaped attack, completely revealing the pavilion in the weeds, the pond, and the 2-story building behind the weeds. Holding the sword tightly in his hand, he stepped on the weeds and walked into the pavilion step by step, and then saw the tea set placed on the stone table in the pavilion. Although 5 years have passed, the high-quality tea set is still intact. This is. When his eyes swept across the tea set on the stone table and looked towards the building, a pair of shallow paw prints on the edge of the dusty stone table immediately caught his attention. Although the paw prints were also covered with dust, compared with the dust around the stone table, the thickness was obviously lighter, which means that the paw prints were left long after the massacre, and the time left should be within 1 to 2 years. At the same time, through the shape and size of the paw prints, he can be 100% sure that this is a paw print left by a slightly fat black cat. Recalling the records in the file, Qi Liangkai's wife Xia Huiwen raised a black cat, which gave him a very strong premonition that the paw prints on the stone table were most likely left by the missing black cat. But unfortunately, the claw marks on the stone table were too old, so there was no breath left in the claw marks. This made him unable to judge whether the black cat had been promoted to a spiritual monster, nor could he use Taoism to track it. Alas! After a disappointed sigh, Zhang Fengjai withdrew his gaze from the claw marks, walked out of the pavilion with a sword in hand, and continued to walk towards the building. However, just as his left foot had just stepped over the steps of the pavilion and was about to step on the cut weeds, a thin gray snake about 11 or 12 centimeters long and the same color as the weeds suddenly jumped out from the weeds under his feet and went straight to his left wrist. The thin gray snake that suddenly jumped out was neither promoted to a demon beast nor did it contain any poison, so Zhang Fengjai did not dodge or counterattack in a panic, allowing the thin gray snake to bite his wrist. But what continued to surprise him was that the seemingly ordinary thin gray snake not only directly bit through the steel and iron body defense, but also contained a trace of weak yin-sha energy in its fangs, and then went straight to the heart through the blood vessels. Originally, in the abandoned manor where snakes and rats lived together, there were no rats that could get information, which had made him alert and take precautions. Then, facing the thin gray snake that should not have appeared, his first reaction was to dodge, and the second reaction was to attack. Instead of looking down on the gray and thin snake like before, and letting the gray and thin snake attack without any defense, Zhang Fengjai, with a flash of self-blame in his eyes, immediately used the Hunyuan taking heart method to absorb the yin-sha energy, and stretched out his free right hand, directly pinched the gray and thin snake's head, and then tried to crush the snake head with force. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 580. In manner number 31. Just as he was about to crush the snake's head with his thumb and index finger to calm down the anger caused by his self-blame, a sudden change in his body made Zhang Fengjai stop wanting to kill the thin gray snake, and his eyes revealed an extremely surprised look. Because the thin gray snake bit the wound on his wrist and forcibly injected a stream of yin-sha energy, which was absorbed by the Hunyuan taking heart, the quality of the gray energy was transformed, and the effect on the improvement of cultivation and strength was far beyond his imagination. Some time ago, he was able to cultivate the yin and yang crystals cultivated by the yin and yang spiritual veins, completely eliminate the hidden dangers of the Hunyuan taking heart method, and use the rearranged heart method to practice for an hour, and the effect was equivalent to the 5 or 6 hours of hard practice before. And the trace of yin-sha energy just absorbed by the Hunyuan taking heart method, which was transformed into high-quality gray energy, had an effect on improving strength that was almost equivalent to 1 hour of practice. How could he not be surprised by the improvement of cultivation that was completely beyond common sense and imagination? After taking a look at the struggling gray snake, and then at the wound on his left wrist, Zhang Fengjai's eyes flashed with determination. He pinched the snake's head with force to expose its fangs, and then stabbed it into the wound on his wrist again. Immediately afterwards, a stream of yin-sha energy ran straight to the heart along the blood vessels of the wound, and was then absorbed by the Hunyuan taking heart method that had been running. Afterwards, the heart method was transformed into the same high-quality gray energy and input into the danshan. When he clearly felt the gray energy input into the danshan, and began to rapidly expand the capacity of the danshan and greatly improve his own cultivation, the surprised look in Zhang Fengjai's eyes was instantly replaced by ecstasy. Because through his personal experience just now, he found that the yin-sha energy injected into the body by the gray and thin snake was no less effective than the Xianyuan pill in improving his cultivation and strength. At the same time, the successive transformation of the yin-sha energy injected by the two gray and thin snakes also allowed the cultivation of the 8th level of the foundation building period to reach the limit of the peak realm, and was fully capable of directly impacting the 9th level of the foundation building period. However, in addition to the surprise, 2 puzzles emerged in his heart. The first puzzle was how the thin gray snake survived safely in the manner where even mice could not survive. The second puzzle was that the thin gray snake in front of him was just an ordinary snake. Why could its fangs pierce the flesh defense comparable to steel and iron bones, and why did it have the yin-sha energy that only ghosts and evil spirits could have? Since the thin gray snake in front of him did not open his spiritual intelligence, he could not solve his inner doubts through the means of communication with each other. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai could only temporarily suppress his doubts in his heart and plan to use the yin-sha energy in the thin gray snake to impact the 9th level of the foundation building period. After all, the higher the cultivation, the stronger the strength, and the more confident you are to deal with the dangers that may arise next. He returned to the pavilion and sat cross-legged, pinched the exposed fangs of the snake head, and then stabbed it into the wound on his wrist for the 3rd time. As the 3rd yin-sha energy was injected into the body, Zhang Fengjai pinched the snake's head and pulled the fangs out of the wound, and then prepared to use the fangs to pierce the wound for the fourth time. Because according to the gray energy converted from the yin-sha energy just now, for the improvement of his own cultivation, he speculated that at least 3 to 4 yin-sha energies injected by the gray and thin snakes were needed to ensure that his cultivation was successfully promoted to the early 9th level of the foundation building period. But at this moment, the gray and thin snake, which had been struggling desperately, not only suddenly calmed down, but also began to dry and age rapidly. 3 seconds. In just 3 seconds, the gray and thin snake completely turned into ashes and fell from his fingers. Looking at the slowly falling ashes, Zhang Fengjai flashed a trace of horror in his eyes, and a very terrible guess emerged in his heart. That is the yin-sha energy in the gray and thin snake's body. The high quality of the converted gray energy and the strong effect on the improvement of cultivation and strength are very likely to be inextricably linked to vitality. Even the fact that ordinary fangs can bite through the flesh defense comparable to steel and iron bones is also related to the large loss of life of the gray and thin snake. As for whether the inner guess is correct, it only needs to continue to capture a few gray and thin snakes to test it. So, after the third yin-sha energy injected into the body just now was completely transformed by the mental method, Zhang Fengjai stood up and walked to the steps of the pavilion, carefully looking for the gray and thin snakes hidden in the weeds. Although the skin color of the gray and thin snakes is exactly the same as the weeds, it is difficult to distinguish them with the naked eye, but through the thickness and length of the body, he still quickly found the 7 hidden gray and thin snakes. Using the speed of the Qingfeng step, he quickly captured the 7 gray and thin snakes alive and returned to the pavilion, and then let them bite his arms at the same time. Next, he began to carefully feel the changes in the life breath of the 7 gray and thin snakes when the yin-sha energy was injected into his blood vessels. In the end, through the process of the gray and thin snakes that were originally in their prime years quickly entering middle age due to the injection of yin-sha energy, his previous guess was completely imprinted, and at the same time a new question arose in his heart. That is the yin-sha energy in the gray and thin snakes. Why can it deprive the ethereal vitality? However, the drastic changes taking place in his dantian forced him to continue to suppress the doubts that emerged in his heart. Because the yin-sha energy injected by the 7 gray and thin snakes at the same time just now was transformed into gray energy by the Hunyuan taking heart method, which allowed his cultivation to successfully advance to the early stage of the 9th level of the foundation building period, and he already had the strength to fight with the core disciples of the 10 major sects. After mobilizing his strong body strength and directly shaking out the 7 thin gray snakes biting his arm from the pavilion, Zhang Fengjai simply consolidated his cultivation after the breakthrough, then stood up and left the pavilion, heading straight for the 2-story building in front of him. Because of the constant doubts in his heart, he was eager to find the answer. And the 2-story building where the murder happened was the only target he thought could solve his doubts. Perhaps it was because there was a huge secret hidden in the building in front of him, or perhaps it was because of the revenge of the 7 thin gray snakes that were just injured. Just when he rushed out of the pavilion, one after another thin gray snakes rushed out from the hidden weeds and rushed straight to his vital parts. Facing hundreds of thin gray snakes that rushed over quickly, Zhang Fengjai used palm techniques to kill and knock away those thin gray snakes that attacked the fatal vital parts, and let the remaining thin gray snakes bite his body. After all, the yin-sha energy injected into the body by the gray and thin snake has the same effect on improving cultivation and strength as the extremely precious Xianyuan Dan. How can such a cost-free benefit be given up in vain? Then, he accelerated and rushed towards the building not far away.